is going to be Southern Sports Gumbo's preview predictions. We're going to pick our coach, player, team of the week from the past weekend, and we'll finish up after talking games with a little college football playoff picture. We'll break down the rankings from tonight a little bit. So I'll get us started with coach, player, and team. All three of these for me are in Lubbock, Texas. Texas Tech got a huge win at home against BYU to the tune of 29-7. So Texas Tech is my team of the week. Joey McGuire is going to be my coach of the week this week. Not only does he have this Texas Tech Red Raider team rolling, he's also finding a way to diss on Notre Dame a little bit. So props to him. And then my player of the week, I think my second time this season to pick a guy on defense, and that's going to be Jacob Rodriguez for Texas Tech. He had 14 tackles this week, 9 solo tackles, a fumble recovery, and an interception. Through 10 games, his stat line is 88 tackles, 48 of those are solos, one sack, 3 interceptions, 7 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries. So Jacob Rodriguez is having a heck of a season and was a big part of their win last week against BYU. Sweets, who do you have for player, team, coach?
All right, so my team of the week is Division III Grinnell Pioneers. They improved to 2-7 on the season. They beat Lawrence 63-6 Saturday in a mild blizzard in Grinnell, Iowa. My coach of the week is Coach Gibson. Coach Gibson is Grinnell's offensive coordinator. He installed the triple option at Grinnell to begin the season, and they've had a little trouble getting that going. But they got it going in a big way this weekend, scoring 63 points. They put up 424 on the ground, and that 424 was they were led by running back Lucky Carton, who had 121 yards on the ground along with 5 touchdowns, another school record. And the offensive line for Grinnell was instrumental in getting that going. The offensive line was led by Josh Clark, Logan Sanchez, Larry Peck, Ricky Eastern, and Andrew Funk. So they were instrumental in setting that school record. And Grinnell's got a lot of good things coming down the road. So we're excited to watch these kids grow up together. Kev, who do you got for team, player, and coach of the week?
So I'm going to go with Oregon as my team of the week. They went on the road to Iowa and won a tough game that I honestly thought that they might lose, and they won it in a physical way, which has been the question mark about this Oregon team. Can they play physical? Won it in a rainstorm, and was behind and had to have a 2-3 minute drive at the end of the game to win it. Dante Moore really threw some clutch passes in that. And you also take out that their 2 best wide receivers, Dak Moore was one of them, were out, hurt this whole game. So they did have some clutch catches down the sideline. But I guess where I'm going, there's a lot of adversity in this game and bad weather at Oregon against the physical, or at Iowa against the physical Iowa team, and Oregon pulled it out. And so along those lines, I'm going to stick with Dan Lanning as my coach of the week. This was a game that they had to have for the playoffs, and in a moment that they could have puckered, they didn't, and he kept them focused, and they played with toughness. And he likes to talk about that toughness, but to me, this is one of the times that they've showed it. And if you look over the years, Oregon's, even though Lanning's considered a really good coach, in some of these matchups over the years, they've lost. So he lost to Ohio State last year. He lost to Washington 2 times. And a couple of years ago. So this was a game he needed to win. Lost to Indiana this year, and he did. So Oregon team of the week, Dan Lanning, coach of the week. My player of the week, I want to go to someone that maybe a lot of people haven't heard or know about, and that's a freshman in his first college start at Colorado. Juju Lewis completed 63% of his passes, for 300 yards, had 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, averaged 8.2 yards an attempt. 7 yards is the mark that you consider really good, and he hit that. And so he's my player of the week. I think he's someone that we will hear a lot about. He was highly recruited. He enrolled early, so he technically could had one more year of high school. He is an 18-year-old now at this point in his career. But I think we'll see him. I think he'll probably start the rest of the year, and I think he can maintain his red shirt at Colorado. But I think we start to hear a lot of good things about him. And he's even someone that you might see other teams go after in the portal. So Juju Lewis will be my player of the week. So what games does that lead us into?
Yeah, that leads us into a couple Friday night matchups. Let's get started with Clemson and Louisville. Sweets, want to get us going on this one?
Yeah, so the 7-2 Louisville Cardinals are facing 4-5 Clemson Tigers here. Louisville still got an outside shot at making the playoffs here, so this game's obviously a lot more important for them than Clemson. Clemson is fighting for a bowl berth here, so they need to win 2 out of their last 3 to become bowl eligible. So it's a big game for them as well. But Clemson's got a lot more riding on the line here. Louisville is down 8-1 in this matchup historically. However, they did win last year, 33-21, which was a big upset at the time. Miller Moss is looking to bounce back after a rough performance last week. So for Louisville to have a chance to beat Clemson this week, Moss is going to have to play a lot better, and that defense is going to have to reset and get back to doing what they do best. Dabo, this is a big game. He's preaching brimstone and fire, and they really want to get this one not to just be bowl eligible, because 4-5 isn't the Clemson record 9 games through the season, and Dabo knows that the fan base expects more. So there's a lot of fire going on over in that part of the world. But Louisville is favored by 3. I think that they win the game. I think they win outright. I think they cover. I'm going to take Louisville 35. Clemson 24, and they keep their playoff hopes alive. You got any thoughts on this game, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm actually going the other way in this one. I think penalties could play a factor in this game. Louisville's averaging about 65 yards in penalties, which puts them outside the top 100. Clemson's playing much cleaner at about 44 yards a game in penalties, good for top 30. I think Dabo, at some point, they have to move in the right direction this season. And I've said this a few times, so we'll see what happens. But I think Cade Klubnik has played better than I expected him to this year, even though they're 4-5. Adam Randall's been running the ball well for this Clemson offense. So I think Clemson's going to win a close one. I'm going to go 27-24. Clemson gets a win, and Louisville's out of the playoff hunt after this week. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, it's going to be one of the better games of the week. And I'm like you. And again, Clemson has showed us a couple of times this year that that they have life, and then they step back and they've been inconsistent. So I don't know what to make of it, because I would also throw Louisville in that category. To me, at times, Louisville's looked as good as any team in the ACC, and you think that they're going to be in that conference championship game, and then they lay an egg, and they've done that twice this year. So, again, I think you got a matchup of, which team shows up for both teams, or, for both teams in this. It's a close game, and guys, it's a hard game to pick. I'll just be honest. I'll go with Clemson. Give me Clemson 24-21, but it's a game I wouldn't bet it either way.
So that takes us to another Friday night game here. You've got Minnesota traveling to Eugene to face off against the Ducks. Oregon's a huge favorite in this game, 25.5 points. What are your thoughts on this one, Kevin?
Yeah, so I think it's really interesting. PJ Fleck, he was the coach of Minnesota, and before he was at Minnesota, he was kind of known as a guy that ran a spread offense. He was a wide receivers coach in the NFL, and he had this high-powered offense. And the last 3 or 4 years at Minnesota, he's kind of evolved into very physical play on defense, very physical running game on offense, not as much in that spread passing game. And so that leads you into this game. And so the Minnesota team, they average a little over 300 yards offensively, and then the same thing defensively. So they've became a team that likes to get the game into a grinded out game, very similar to Iowa in style, you know, 20-17, 20-13 game. Their quarterback, Drake Lindsey's thrown for 1,900 on the year, and he's kind of that same type guy. He's very much a leadership, tough guy, and he's early in his career, redshirt freshman. So that's the game that Minnesota is going to try to turn this into. On the flip side of it, you've got Oregon, who averages 471 yards on offense and really good in the running game. And then Dante Moore is again showing that he can win throwing the ball. And again, in the weather last week, he did. So I like Oregon in this game. I like them to pull away. I don't, again, I think Minnesota's defense will be very competitive and slow Oregon down. But I still think Oregon wins this game to the tune of around 31-10. I don't know if they'll quite get to that 25-point margin. I think that's going to be very close on that from a spread standpoint. But I just don't see, Oregon's defense is one of the top defenses too, allowing only 240 yards of offense. So I don't see Minnesota moving the ball very consistently in this game. So give me Oregon 31-10. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
I'm with you. I think Oregon has the number one pass defense in the country, and if Minnesota is expecting to move the ball that way, it's going to be tough sledding against the Ducks. Again, Oregon is still battling for a playoff spot. They've got everything to play for here, whereas Minnesota is 6-3, 4-2 in the Big Ten. Obviously, they're going to end up in a bowl game, but I just think Oregon is more talented, better all the way around in all facets of the game. I think Oregon wins big here. Give me Oregon 45, Minnesota 14. What are your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, I predicted Iowa to beat Oregon last week. Oregon really fought hard, played in a tough environment, really battled that game out and got a win at the end. I think they may come out a little sluggish for 15 minutes in this one. So I think this is a game that's going to be close for a quarter. But I'm with you guys. I think Oregon wins this one pretty big. Oregon's top 20 in the nation in turnover margin at +6. I think this is going to be like a 37-10 game, very close to that line, in my opinion. But I think Oregon takes care of business and gets a win in this one. So that takes us to Saturday morning. College game day. You've got Notre Dame going on to face Pitt in a game that's being played in Pittsburgh. Looking at the line in this one, Notre Dame's an 11.5-point favorite in this one. Out of some other good games that you could have had for college game day, I am a little surprised that it's going to Pittsburgh. But nonetheless, Pittsburgh's offense has been pretty good this year, averaging 230 or 430 yards a game, 300 of that in the air. The Notre Dame offense has been firing on all cylinders for about 470 a game. I think this comes down to, both of these teams are still alive in the playoff hunt to some degree. Notre Dame sitting at number 9 in the country with two studs on offense, and Jeremiah Love, who is just shy. I predicted him to hit the 1,000-yard mark last week. He's at 988. So I'm going to make a bold prediction that he gets to the 1,000-yard mark on the season after this one, probably on his first carry of the game, if I'm being honest. And CJ Carr, the redshirt freshman's been playing really well. 2,300 yards almost, 19 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. When I just look at, kind of the body of work for both of these teams, I thought 11.5 points was a huge margin. Then I look at, Pittsburgh is -1 in the turnover margin this year. Notre Dame's number 8 in the country at +10. I like Notre Dame in this one. I'm going to go 38-21. Notre Dame gets a huge win on the road and pretty much locks up their playoff hopes. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah. So again, I think this is a very competitive game. Pitt's playing very well, and Nardozzi is a very good defensive coach. I've mentioned before, I really like C.J. Allen, and I really like the C.J. Carr. And I really like what Notre Dame does and how they've improved defensively under Freeman. They struggled the first couple of games, gave up 40 points to A&M and 41, and gave up 27 to Miami in early. So Notre Dame's gotten better each week and keeps improving. And C.J. Carr, for a freshman, is just a really good leader as a redshirt freshman. I like Notre Dame to win this game. I think it'll be a little closer than what you thought, D-Mac. But I'm going to go Notre Dame 27, Pitt 20, in a game that's competitive and fairly close. And Notre Dame pulls away right at the end to win. But both these teams are fighting for that playoff scenario. So I think it'll be a really competitive, fun game to watch. Sweet, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I think Notre Dame wins the game. I think it's going to be a close game. Pitt's battling to hang on in the playoff hunt here. They keep their hopes alive. And this is the biggest game that's been in that stadium in a long, long time, with game day being there. I think this is game day's first trip ever to Pitt, if I'm not mistaken. So this is a pretty big deal for them. And I think the fans are going to show up. I think the team's going to show up and show out early. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame is better, more talented, and Notre Dame will find a way to win. So I'm going to take Notre Dame 31, Pitt 27.
Cool. So before we go on to the next game, Kevin, you gotta tell us about is that an Oklahoma State Cup?
It is.
Okay.
It is. I was sending Bob there. No, you got to love the Pokes. You point your pistols at Oklahoma State. That's actually where I went to school, so that's actually why I've got the cup. It's a tough time. It's a tough time for the Pokes right now with Gundy. Basketball team's off to a good start, though, so we have hope there. Good question, Bob.
At least Brian Kelly's not their coach.
Hey, he could be. He could be there next.
He could be. He could be. Lord, let's hope not.
Make it happen.
So
Eric Morris, North Texas. You heard it here. Eric Morris, North Texas, next coach at Oklahoma State. Very likely.
That wouldn't be a bad pickup. Wouldn't be a bad pickup for him.
Be good for them.
To South Florida Navy is the next game up. Kevin, get us going on this one.
Yeah, so, again, Saturday at noon, South Florida is a 10.5-point favorite. This is a huge game in that American Conference and a huge game for the playoff non-Power 4 bids for both of these teams. The winner has a shot. The loser is done. And they're playing this game at Navy. Both quarterbacks are the keys to the offense. Bryce Brown has 3,000 total yards for the year and 28 touchdowns. Blake Horvath has 2,000 yards for Navy and 20 touchdowns. So it starts and ends offensively for the quarterbacks. When I look at the game, the difference to me in this game is the defenses. So if I go look at Navy's defense is 93rd against the rush, 113 overall. And then when I look at South Florida is 24th against the rush and 7th in creating turnovers, 2 turnovers a game. So when I break the game down and I look at that, and obviously Notre Dame or Navy is a team that they're not going to turn the ball over a lot, and they're going to run the ball. Again, South Florida 24th against the run. Navy is the best in the country at running the ball with 300 yards rushing a game. But when you put those two together, I think South Florida will do enough to slow them down for them to get the win. And again, Navy's going to try to control the clock like they've tried to do all year. But when you look at what they've done against really good teams, Notre Dame handled Navy last week, and the week before that they lost their first American Conference game at North Texas. And North Texas was able to get out in front of them. I think South Florida will be able to do the same. I like South Florida in this game, 23-10, in a very similar game for the Navy offenses they faced last weekend. I like South Florida's defense a lot in this game. What's your thoughts there, D-Mac?
Yeah, it's Veterans Day today. My grandfather was in the Navy. I'm rolling with the service academy in this one. I think they're going to be able to establish the run game early and really control the clock. I'm going to go a 17-13 win for Navy in this one. If they can keep it low scoring, I think that really bodes well in their favor. So give me Navy in this one. Service Academy getting a win a few days after Veterans Day. Sweets, who do you have?
I'm with you, DMAC. I'm gonna take the Naval Academy 23-21. I think that they pull it out late. I think the difference in the game is going to be one, it's at home, and Navy's undefeated at home this year. They're 5-0. But I think at the end of the day, Navy's discipline on defense is gonna win the day, and they're gonna get a big stop against South Florida at the end that gives them the win. So give me Navy 23-21. Who does that take us to next, DMAC?
Yeah, that takes us to North Texas, traveling to UAB. Sweets, who do you like in this one?
Well, I like North Texas big here. UAB hasn't been that good this year. UAB had a big upset a few weeks ago, but they're 3-6 on the season. They lost to Rice last weekend 17-24. So they caught lightning in a bottle one weekend. They're not going to do it again. North Texas is still playing for a playoff spot here. 8-1, just came off a 2-touchdown win versus Navy. And they're scoring 46 points a game. They're really lighting it up on offense. I just don't think that UAB has enough firepower for them. I think at the end of the day, we're looking at North Texas 49, UAB 17. I think it's a big time beatdown. Who do you got here, Kev?
Yeah, I like North Texas and their offense. Again, I like Eric Morrison and what he's done. Caleb Hawkins is a really good running back, freshman All-American, runs the ball well, catches the ball well, and again, they've done a lot of good with their quarterback, Morris has. And so when you look just a little more about Eric Morris, he was at Texas Tech, recruited a pretty good quarterback there. Then he went to Washington State, and Cam Ward followed by the quarterback at Oklahoma right now. I'm drawing a blank. Goodness.
Mateer?
But anyhow, he's done a really good job with quarterbacks, and he's proven out that. And I think that'll continue. I think you'll see North Texas win this game 38-10. John Mateer, that's who I couldn't think of there for a minute ago. I think you'll see North Texas win this game 38-10. Not quite as big a blowout as you, Sweets, but they're going to win this game comfortably and keep their momentum going and their fight for that conference championship in the playoffs. D-Mac, your thoughts?
Yeah, there's going to be some madness in the American Conference with Navy pulling off an upset this weekend upcoming. UAB may be 3-6 overall, but they're 3-1 when they're playing at home. They're -8 in the turnover margin on the season, but they're +3 at home in their 4 games. There's just some magic in Birmingham this year. So I'm rolling for some more chaos in the American. I think UAB pulls off a close one. I'm going to go 27-24. UAB gets a win and really creates a lot of chaos in the American Conference and opens the door for a team like James Madison to get into the college football playoffs. So that brings us to UCF and Texas Tech. Texas Tech is 9-1 on the season. UCF is 4-5. The line in this game is 23.5. So Texas Tech is a huge favorite in this game. They're averaging 480 yards a game on offense. They're scoring 42 points a game, good for fourth in the nation. They are only giving up 269 yards a game, good for 10th. 73 rushing yards puts them best in the country on defense. And they're only giving up 12 and a half points a game, which puts them top 3. I think, normally my margin, my favorite stats, the turnover margin, UCF is +1, good for 60th. Texas Tech's +11, good for 4th in the nation. I just think Cameron Dickey, Baron Morton are going to be too much for UCF to slow down. I think Texas Tech has another big win. I'm going to go 49-6 in this one. 41-point win for the Red Raiders this week. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, Ken, you've been on Texas Tech all year, and they're really good. I wish, honestly, that Texas Tech would be in the Big Ten or the SEC, because I think they would compete in the top of those leagues. I think they're that good. You mentioned Rodriguez, who's an outstanding linebacker, one of the best in the country. And again, they've got a good offense and a good offensive coordinator. I like Tech to win this game 41-10 over UCF. UCF thought bringing Scott Frost back, and look, it's year one, so we'll give him a couple years. But year one's not going real good for him. I'll just say that. So I see this as Tech blowout. I think they continue to roll and push for the playoffs, and UCF is waiting for next year, in my opinion. Sweet, your thoughts?
I'm with you. I like Texas Tech big here. It's senior day. They still have everything to play for, and they're also playing for style points too. While they're sitting with one loss, how they win is still important to Texas Tech, and I think that they're going to blow doors come Saturday. I like Texas Tech 59, UCF 14. I think Texas Tech is going to score all they want, and they're going to. They're going to score a ton. They're going to score a ton. Who's that takes to next, D-Mac?
Yeah, it takes us to NC State, Miami. Who do you like in this one, Sweets?
I like Miami in the game. The line is 14.5. I like Miami to win the game. I like them to cover. But Miami's fell off. After that loss to Louisville, they haven't been the same. Carson Beck hasn't been the same since that what was the 4 interception performance against Louisville. But I think they'll get it turned around against NC State. They still have an outside shot at a playoff spot, sitting with 2 losses in the ACC. I'm not sure that they're going to get to their conference championship, but perhaps they can get in there and be a part of that if they can win out and get a little help. I think Miami defensively is just too much with Ruben Bain and those guys in Miami's front seven. Those guys are ballers still. I still think they're one of the best defenses in the country. I like Miami big here. I think I'm going to take Miami 35-14. Who do you like in this one, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Miami in this one. Carson Beck's had a shaky season at best, but when he's playing good football, that Miami offense is really hard to stop. So another big key is, Miami's +7 in the turnover margin. NC State's -4. I'm going to go 35-17. Miami wins this game. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, so I think the home field is a big advantage in this game, just because NC State's been really good at home. Their defense is not very good, and so I think Beck and Miami will have the ability to score. The one thing that NC State, when they've played at home, their offense has really got to rolling, and their quarterback is from Miami. So I think you'll continue to see him pass the ball and move the ball well. So I think it's going to be a competitive game. It's a 14-point spread, I believe, and I don't know that Miami will cover that. I think I like Miami to win the game along the lines of 37-24, 35-24. Let me go 34-24, is what I like Miami. But I do think NC State will move the ball, and they'll show signs of success offensively. I just don't think their defense will hold up. And on the road, that turnover margin, you can't lose the turnover margin if you go on the road, and you got to bank on them doing that. So I'll take Miami.
Yes, so that brings us to the Iowa USC game. Kevin, who do you like in this one?
It's a really good game, and again, if this game was at Iowa, I would really like Iowa in this game. USC though has shown the ability to run the ball this year. They're running the ball for right at 200 yards a game. Their offense is, tops in the country, averaging over 500 yards, and they're playing at home. I think that balance is just going to be too much for Iowa to overcome. Iowa's, offense, a little over 300 yards a game, about 320 yards a game. Iowa needs to win a game in that 20-13 type score like they had last week against Oregon. And on the road at USC in the Rose Bowl, I just don't see them having the ability to keep USC from getting high 20s, low 30s. USC's defense has improved. This isn't Lincoln Riley's team of 2 years ago. So I like USC in this game, 31-13 over Iowa. Iowa's passing game really struggles, and again at home in the weather, they can kind of rely on a running game, field position. This game where it's going to be in California, the weather is going to be decent. I just think that's just too much on USC's side, that travel distance and everything. Sweet, what you think about USC and Iowa?
I like USC as well, but I think it's going to be a pretty close game. I'll pick my score is USC 20, Iowa 17. I think this is a defensive battle here. Iowa's been great all season. I think they're averaging giving up 13 a game on defense, 13 points per game, giving up 250, total yards. That's just fantastic. But tough. It's going to be tough for them to go on the road, traveling from the Midwest to the West Coast to play that game early. A 12:30 start. That's a lot to overcome. We saw Indiana upset Oregon with that same timeline, but it doesn't happen very often. I think that time difference is going to be enough to help USC get the victory. So, give me the Trojans 20-17 here. Who you going with, DMAC?
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I like USC in this one. They're playing really physical football. They're running at a high level, passing at a high level on offense. Their defense is much improved over the last few seasons. I still think this is going to be a heavy defensive battle. I've got USC winning this one 27-17 over Iowa, but good game, and I think USC eventually takes care of business in this one. So that takes us to Utah and Baylor. I'll get us started on this one. I think Utah is a 8.5 point favorite in this one, traveling to Baylor. This Utah team still has a little bit to play for. If there is some crazy stuff to happen the last 3 weeks of the season, Utah still has a chance to sneak into that Big 12 championship. So, their offenses looked good, averaging 477 yards a game. They're scoring nearly 40 points a game. And on defense, they are only giving up about 14 points a game. Baylor's offense has been kind of up and down. They're still averaging 34 points a game, throwing for 315 yards a game. But I think this comes a little bit. Neither of these teams are good in the turnover margin, but Baylor's horrendous. They're sitting at -8 on the season. That's good for 122nd. Utah's 60th in the nation at +1. So I'm going to roll with Devin Dampier and the Utah team. I think they win this game. I'm going to go 31-17. Utah wins a game on the road and covers. What do you think, Sweets?
I'm with you. Utah wins this game 37-21, and they're going to do it because Baylor's defense is not going to be able to stop Dampier and the running Utes offense. I think Utah will have their way with Baylor through the air and on the ground. This hasn't been Dave Aranda's best defensive team at Baylor, and he's known as a defensive guy. I just think Utah is, they're still battling. They're 7-2 on the year, come off a big beat down of Cincinnati. So they're starting to hit their stride. I like the Utes big here. Where are you going with this one, Kev?
Yeah, I think the part about Baylor's defense and Utah's running game is what decides this one. This is not Baylor's best defense, not Dave Aranda's best defense, and they do give up rushing yards, and Utah can run the ball. And then on the flip side of it, Utah has got a solid defense. And so, I just think the matchup there on the defensive side, both teams' defense, Utah is going to get more stops in this. And Sawyer Robertson's a good quarterback, and he's going to have if Baylor's going to win the game, he has to have an outstanding game. But I just like Utah's defense and the consistency that they play with more than Baylor's. Give me Utah 27, Baylor 20. That's how, I think Utah will run the ball, control the clock, and make the possessions really matter for Robertson.
Yeah, so that brings us to the UCLA Ohio State game. Kevin, want to get us started on that one? Or Sweets? I can't remember who has that.
I believe that was Sweets.
I'm good. I'll handle this one. I like Ohio State big here. Ohio State is to me the best team in the country. They're number one defensively. They're giving up 7.2 yards or 7.2 points a game. 211 yards is all they're giving up on defense. And their offense is fantastic. Sayin is in the Heisman conversation. They're just doing what they want, how they want, and who they want to do it against. I think Ohio State, again, best team in the country. They're going to beat the brakes off of Nico. Nico he wished he would have left before this game, I think is how it's going to go. I like Ohio State 49, USC 10 here, or UCLA 10 here. What are your thoughts here, D-Mac?
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Ohio State is the best team in the country this year. Julian Sayin is playing phenomenal football at the quarterback position. 2,500 yards, 24 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and just under 81% completion percentage. Yeah, that's insane. That's better than video game numbers for a completion percentage. Does help when you have a guy like Jeremiah Smith to throw to, but Sayin is playing at an incredibly high level. And in my opinion, he is the best quarterback in college football this year. And you guys know how big of a fan I am of Marcel Reed at Texas A&M. So that I'm with you there, Sweets. I think did you say 49-10?
Yes, sir.
I'm going to go 52-3. I don't even think Nico scores a touchdown this week, and he's probably looking at how can he get out of UCLA and maybe to Tennessee Tech or somewhere. Who do you have, Kevin?
Yeah, so obviously I'm going to go with Ohio State in this game. I agree that they're probably the best team in the country. I like the saying, talking again. I think your Heisman favorites, in my opinion, as we see the games evolve over the next 2 or 3 weeks, I think we're going to see Sayin and Marcel Reed probably end up being the top 2 in that Heisman race. I think you're going to see Reed win some games down the stretch and probably the SEC championship, which will catapult him. But, Sayin it, he's just been so good all year. So that's my spin on the quarterback piece. Here's the part that interests me in this game. UCLA's offense has showed life over the last 3 or 4 weeks. It's been a couple of weeks since they got a win, but they're still, they've been scoring, 20 in the 20s from where they were at the beginning of the season. And Ohio State's defense has not really had any challenges. So what I would look for in this game is, can Ohio State absolutely shut down UCLA's offense? Or can UCLA show that maybe there are some chinks in the Ohio State offense that you can get some points here and there against them. So that's the part I want to watch in this game. As far as a final score, I'm going to go Ohio State 41, UCLA 13. But I would like to see, does UCLA get in the 20s again against this defense? Because it's one of the best defenses in the country statistically. But again, look at Ohio State. Their competition's not been the best on the offensive side.
Yeah, so that brings us to Indiana with a tough home game. Oh, wait, no, they're playing the Wisconsin Badgers. So another tough game for Indiana. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, so that's the same Wisconsin team that last Saturday, their punter with a fake punt led the team in passing. So that's all I really have to say about this game. Look, Indiana averaging, right around 450 yards on offense, very balanced. They run the ball for 220. They pass the ball for 250. They're going to score, even though Wisconsin's defense is solid. But Wisconsin in his own offense is so bad, and Indiana's defense, they only give up, 250 some yards a game. So that's going to be a lot. And Wisconsin on third was one of the worst teams on third down conversion at 30%. So you add that up, it leads to time of possession is going to be dominated by Indiana in their running game. So I really think you're going to see Indiana win this game 45-3. They're going to get back on in a dominant playing fashion from where they were. They eked out that game against Penn State last weekend. And you got to have a win like that to get yourself into the playoffs and to win things. And look, people are talking about that game like Indiana played down. They forget Penn State has one of the best rosters. And if you watched that game last weekend, Penn State played well. Their defense played well. So to me, that's a credit to Indiana to be able to pull that game out where Penn State played probably their best game of the year and played up to their talent level. So I think you'll see Indiana roll again this week. That's my thoughts. D-Mac, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, if you're a Wisconsin fan, you just announced you're keeping your coach, you're infusing money into this program. What you don't want to see is your punter lead the team in passing yards the following week after making those announcements. That program's in some serious trouble. Did you say that they'd score a field goal against Indiana?
I did. I mean, they could get shut out. I just give them a field goal. You luck yourself into a field goal somewhere.
I'm gonna go.
It's hard to get shutouts.
I'm gonna go 45-0 here for Indiana. I think Mendoza has a good game, and I think they pitch a shutout in this one, and puts Wisconsin in even more dire need to figure something out for next season. What do you think, Sweets?
Wisconsin was a once proud football program. Barry Alvarez, ran the program, as a head coach and then as the AD forever. While they never got to the pinnacle, they were always a tough team that had a tough offensive line that would bust you in the mouth. You knew when you were playing a Wisconsin Badger team that you were in for a 60-minute dogfight. Now playing a Wisconsin Badger team looks like you're playing against a JUCO squad of kids that aren't sure they want to be there. Fickell was one of the hot names, 5, 6, 8 years back, with being an up and coming coach, and he's just been awful at Wisconsin. And it's going to get worse for him. Indiana's going to beat them 52-3, and that field goal was a gift from Sweets there, Wisconsin fans. So you're welcome. There you go. Where are we going next, D-Mac?
Yeah, this brings us to our last non-SEC game of the week. You get TCU traveling to BYU for a late night Saturday game, 9:15 Central, 10:15 Eastern time. This game's being played in Provo. BYU is only a 4.5 point favorite, and in this one, coming off a blowout loss on the road to Texas Tech. But there's still some things for BYU fans to be excited about. If they just win the next 3 games, they're in their conference championship. And they didn't take as big of a hit as I expected in the college football playoff rankings, still sitting at number 13. So they still have some things going for them. BYU is +7 in the turnover margin, which puts them in the top 20. Freshman quarterback Bear Bachmeier is still playing good football, just under 2,000 yards passing, 12 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. LJ Martin's got about 825 yards on the ground and adds 5 touchdown scores. I haven't looked at injury reports. I don't know if BYU has a few guys out this week, but I love BYU in this game. I think they're going to be fired up after getting punched in the mouth last week. I like BYU in this one. I'm going to go 31. I'm going to go 38-21, 17-point win at home for BYU. I think TCU is a good team. I just think BYU is going to be playing with a little passion this week. What do you think, Kevin?
It's going to be a really good game. If this was on a neutral field, I'll be honest, I think I would take TCU on a neutral field. I'm going to go BYU simply because they're playing at home and you get that elevation and that in it. But I like TCU's offense and me personally in this game better than BYU's. And so, again, if I think TCU will move the ball, I think they'll be effective. I think Bogmeyer is going to have to pull some things out at the end. He's proven he can do that against Arizona, and he played well against Utah. So I'm going to stay with BYU in a game that's 27-24, but I think TCU is going to give them all that they can handle in this game. Sweets, your thoughts?
I think BYU comes back, gets this one with a vengeance. They've still got something to play for after that big loss to Texas Tech. They know that they do. Bachmeier, for the first time all year, looked like a true freshman. I think he bounces back against TCU. It's a home game, the friendly confines of Lavelle Edwards Stadium there in Provo. And I think BYU stands up. I think the defense is going to be ready to get some swagger back. I like BYU here 31, TCU 21 here. Where does that take us to, DMAC?
Yeah, it takes us to some SEC football. I'll get things started on the early game, and that's South Carolina traveling to Texas A&M. This game opened up as a 17.5-point line. Texas A&M is now an 18.5-point favorite in this one. After playing 3 consecutive road games, the Aggies get another game at home here. So they're averaging 460 yards in total offense, 205 on the ground. They're scoring 38 points a game. And all of those are good for top 20 in the nation for Texas A&M. It really all gets started at the quarterback position for them. Marcel Reed, 2,200 passing yards, 19 passing touchdowns. And then you've got Mario Craver and KC Concepcion catching passes for them. And Concepcion can do it in the return game too. I think he's returned punts for touchdowns in 2 or 3 games this year. Then you look over to the South Carolina side, their offense is only averaging about 294 yards a game. That's good for 129th. They're running for about 100 yards a game, good for 128th. And they are scoring 19.7 points a game. That's good for 120th. The South Carolina defense is really bad. On third down defense, they're averaging opponents to convert about 43% of the time, and Texas A&M is in the top 50 in third down offense. Both of these teams, well, Texas A&M is top 15 in time of possession, holding the ball for about 33 minutes a game. Outside of South Carolina maybe getting lucky with a defensive touchdown somewhere or a return touchdown. I don't see them scoring a touchdown this week. I'm gonna go 38-9. Texas A&M wins this one big, and Carolina gets a couple field goals in this one. What do you think, Kevin?
I like your score. And again, A&M, man, as we watch them evolve and play each week, they continue to get better in the style that Mike Elko wants to play. Good defense, very physical up front on the offensive line, running game, and a diverse passing game. And Colin Klein, in my opinion, is the best offensive coordinator in college football right now, and probably do a head job at the end of the season somewhere. So, I boil all those things to say A&M's getting better every week. That game last week, they beat Missouri pretty handily, but I don't think people realize how dominant they were against Missouri in that game on the road. And they gave up some rushing yards to Missouri, and A&M's defense. That's the one thing they got to get solved. They're prone to give up some rushing yards at times during the game. Cassius Howell, though, coming into this season was thought to be a good defensive end, but Cassius Howell's playing himself into a first-round draft pick, and I think he'll be very disruptive. South Carolina's offensive line has struggled this year, so I think Cassius Howell's going to get 2 or 3 more sacks in this game as he's the SEC's leader. Boil all those things down. I think A&M wins this game 41. I'll go 10. I think South Carolina will get a touchdown just because they'll have Sellers will break a running play and that they'll get something there. But it's going to be a dominant game and a dominant win for Texas A&M. And again, Marcel Reed is going to continue getting more publicity each week, pushing him to the top of that Heisman race with Say. And I think those are the two that it comes down to. And we'll continue to see Reed climb that pole. Sweet, what's your thoughts?
Somebody early in the year, I can't remember who it was, said Reed was in for a big season and Sellers wasn't. I can't remember who it was, but that dude knows football. I think that Marcel Reed and A&M are going to blow doors on South Carolina. They're still undefeated, got everything to play for. Now they're playing for seeding. You obviously want to win the SEC and everything, but they're still got to win these games with style points for seeding, because if they do lose a game, there's a possibility they could, they don't have to be a conference champion to be a top 4 seed this year, I guess. So that possibility is still there for them, and they're deserving right now. I just don't think South Carolina has anything for Texas A&M. I think that Beamer may already have one foot out the door. I know there are a lot of Franklin Tava Tech rumors out there and stuff, but it wouldn't totally surprise me to see Beamer go back home at the end of the year either. In any case, I like Texas A&M big here. I think Texas A&M wins 45-7, and that is a touchdown, an extra point, not a field goal, and 2 safeties. So, yeah, mark me down for Texas A&M big here. Where does that take us next, D-Mac?
Yeah, that takes us to a tough game, an 11:45 a.m. Central Time game. Get the Arkansas Razorbacks traveling to Death Valley for a morning, early afternoon game. Kevin, get us started on this one.
So man, they say style makes fights, right? In boxing and sweets, all about that. And so to me, this game is style makes this game. You've got 2 very contrasting styles. So Arkansas, very good offensively. LSU is not. Arkansas scores 30 points on anybody. LSU does not. Arkansas defensively is terrible. They give up 30 points to anybody. LSU gives up on an average of 19 a game. They do not give up a lot of points. So what gives in this game? So it comes down to the stat that I can feel the most confident in. Turnover margin is Arkansas's -7 and LSU is +3. Look, this is going to be a competitive game. Arkansas is going to move the ball. Another thing I don't like from a style standpoint, even though Blake Baker's defense is good, and gives up 327 yards a game. They give up yards to a rushing quarterback, and Green can run the ball, and he's very fast. So Arkansas is going to score. They're going to move the ball. I think Arkansas will get 30 points. I predict they're going to get 31. I do think, though, they'll have a turnover or two, and Arkansas's defense gives up 430 yards a game. They give up yards rushing and yards passing. So I think this is the game that LSU will get their 30 points in a game. They may not against Western Kentucky, but I do think they will in this game. And so I think LSU wins this game 34-31. Arkansas continues to lose close games. But again, bye week, there's a lot of things that set up for Arkansas to win this game. And there's a lot of things about the matchup scare me if I'm an LSU fan in this game. And then one last thing I'll put into that. Interim coaches usually do really well week one. Teams usually come out and play with a lot of passion, a lot of energy in week one. We saw LSU do that. UAB did that when they got an upset earlier this year. Interim coaches struggle in week two. We saw Florida week one. Great effort against Georgia, kept that game close. Really probably should have won that game. Week two, laid an absolute egg at Kentucky, took it to them. So to me, that's the challenge this weekend. Can Frank Wilson get the same energy out of this LSU team in week two? If he does, I think they get a win. If all the distractions and things swirling around LSU, let's say they have a little bit of adversity early in this game, that could give Arkansas their first SEC win. I think the turnovers and the penalties that have hurt Arkansas this year will continue to hurt them. I think LSU wins a very close game, like they most have played all year for Arkansas. They can be in any game, but they can't seem to get past the hump and they can move the ball. Sweet, your thoughts?
Yeah, this is I've been thinking, but dreading this game because I don't think LSU wins. I just don't think I can't see where LSU can outscore Arkansas. I can see Arkansas scoring, 30 to 35 points against LSU's defense. I cannot see LSU scoring 30 points against anybody. And that's it hurts me to say it, but I think Arkansas wins the game 34-27, something along those lines. And LSU just continues to struggle and look for answers. What are your thoughts, D-Mac?
Yeah, this is an interesting game. Arkansas needs a win badly. At this point for LSU, they played as good as I think they were able to play in that game against Alabama and were unable to score a touchdown. I know that doesn't translate to them not being able to score on a defense like Arkansas, but I don't know if this offense right now in a walkthrough could score 30 points. That's because Arkansas, as bad as their defense is, their front seven isn't terrible. They've got some good linebacker play, some good defensive end play that, I just don't think the LSU O-line can hold all game. I know for LSU, we're going to see a 2-quarterback system in Garrett Nussmeier and Michael Van Buren. I honestly think a lot of times when you go 2-quarterback system, it hurts more than it helps. I think you're going to see both guys underperform for what they've done this year. So I'm going to go 31. Yeah, this is a lot of points. 31-17. Arkansas gets a win on the road against LSU. Unless we get a touchdown or a big play that puts us right there near the end zone, ideally first and goal from the half-yard line, I don't have a ton of faith that we're gonna be able to score. So give me the Razorbacks this week. In a game that could be ugly for both sides from a turnover perspective, and then lack of moving the ball on the LSU side. So that brings us to a to an undefeated team playing an SEC team. That is Tennessee Tech taking on Kentucky in this one. Tell us about it, Sweets.
So Tennessee Tech is undefeated on the year, ranked number 5 in the FCS polls, and they're led by quarterback. I don't want to screw this up, Kikoa Visperas, who has over 2,100 yards passing on the year. They've got a 15-game win streak going. Tennessee Tech really has it rolling here. Now they're going to Kentucky, who hasn't played all that well this season, but has been better in recent weeks. Lord, I really want to pick Tennessee Tech here because I just feel like I should. So I'm going to take Tennessee Tech in the upset here. Tennessee Tech's going to go into
That's sweet.
They're going to win 24-21. But Stoops will not be fired because that might cut into Kentucky's basketball NIL, so they're not going to pay that buyout. But go ahead. Give me the Golden Eagles 24-21. And I like Kikoa Visperas and to score a running touchdown with under a minute left to win the game. Don't have much besides that. What are your thoughts on this one, D-Mac?
Yeah, I would be much more inclined to agree with you and pick Tennessee Tech if Kentucky didn't just dominate the Florida Gators. Florida by no means is a juggernaut this year, but I think Cutter Boley has this team playing at a different level. Not that it's good by any means. Yeah, the kid's still thrown 8 picks to 12 touchdowns, but seems like the team's playing a little bit better with him. I do think this is going to be a close game, though. I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm going to go 27-20. Kentucky gets a win, but it would not surprise me if it went your way, Sweets. So, Kevin, that you get to be the deciding choice here. Does Kentucky improve to 5-5, or does Tennessee Tech move to 11-1?
So look, again, it's an SEC team, and Cutter Boley is playing well, and Kentucky is. We thought that they were one of the worst 2 teams in the league, at the beginning of the year. And we got to give them some credit. Look, they dominated Florida last week, and they've been close a couple other games. They played Ole Miss right down to the wire. And so I'm going to take Kentucky. Give me Kentucky 30-17 in a win, and they keep competing and they keep playing. They might make a bowl game. Stoops had success against Louisville. The one thing I'll absolutely agree with Sweets on, though, if Kentucky were to lose this game, Stoops still has his job. Kentucky's not paying that $37 million buyout. That money's going to NIL for basketball, just like Sweets said.
I sincerely think this is a trap. No joke. I do think this is a trap game if you can call it that for Kentucky.
Yeah.
With all things being equal, I think coming off a big win against Florida, those guys are feeling themselves a little bit. And this is Tennessee Tech. This is their, it's not their bowl game because obviously they're going to be in a playoff, about a month from now. But this is huge for them and their program to say that they beat an SEC team. So I think they're going to come out and treat this game like it's Super Bowl.
It's a good upset pick. I'll give you credit for that. It is. It could happen.
I definitely love the line in this game. Tennessee Tech's getting 20.5 points. You got.
Yeah, I don't think Kentucky covers that.
Yes.
I'm eager to see how much that moves in Tennessee Tech's favor over the next 48 hours.
D-Mac, give me your bookie's number. Text me now.
That brings us to what, in my opinion, should be College Game Day or one of the top 2 choices, and that's Oklahoma traveling to Tuscaloosa to play the Crimson Tide. Kevin, who do you like in this one?
Yeah, so again, I'm gonna throw out the matchups and styles makes fights again, and when you look at some of the matchups in this game, so let me Let me start with Oklahoma's defense, giving up 264 yards a game, only 80 yards a game rushing and passing. Oklahoma's defense is only giving up 180 yards a game. Brent Venables loves to blitz, and he loves to get exotic with his blitzes. I reference that because I think South Carolina and LSU both show that you can slow Simpson down if you get pressure in his face up the middle. He had a good game last week against LSU, 277 yards passing, but his completion percentage wasn't above 60. And I think you're going to see Oklahoma, who has a really good rush defense, get a lot of pressure and a lot of blitzes up the middle against Alabama, and they'll contain that offense. Flip it to the other side. The one category I think Oklahoma has improved in the most is running the football. Xavier Robinson, since they inserted him in the lineup and really made him the primary running back 3 to 4 weeks ago, he's averaging 70, 80 yards a game since they made him a starter, and has had a couple of games where he's had over 100 yards. Alabama still shows opportunities sometimes in the run defense. And so, again, they don't get gashed, but teams usually get 1 or 2 really good running plays, big running plays a game against their defense. I think this game is going to be similar to last week's LSU game from an Alabama standpoint offensively. I think they're going to get low 20s against this Oklahoma defense. Oklahoma's a team at the beginning of the year I thought would be a 7-5 team, but they just keep overachieving. They overachieved. Well, maybe not overachieve is the right word. They do what they have to do to win, but they did it against Michigan. They did it against Auburn at home. They had to win. They had to score a touchdown late in that game to beat Auburn. Tennessee, they go on the road in a game that I really thought they had no chance to win that game. And they overachieved in that first half, got some turnovers, and they've not been good in the turnover margin all year, but they got some turnovers in that game, got control of the game, and then relied on their running game and their defense to withhold the lead and beat Tennessee. And so I think they can kind of do some similar things. I think R. Mason Thomas will have success rushing the quarterback in this game. Look, Simpson's going to have success. He's going to hit some good pass plays. Alabama's wide receiver group is good. So they're not going to shut him out. But I see Alabama getting about 24 in this game. And I think Oklahoma will run the ball and have some success. And the question to me is, can John Mateer have some success passing, in that? D-Mac's saying no, he can't. But again, another thing to consider here, Oklahoma gets past the 50, they're a threat to score. Tate Sindall has been really good from plus 50. And so Oklahoma, every chance they get to the 40-yard line, there's points. So I think this is a game where it's really going to be a tight game. I agree with you, D-Mac. This could be the game of the day. I'm going to go. Alabama's been very suspect the last 2 games. I'm going to, for the first time this year in one of these tight games, I'm going to pick Oklahoma in an upset. I think Oklahoma's going to win this game 27-24. I think they might force a couple of turnovers. Alabama's been great in the turnover margin. And Mateer has shown signs that he can turn the ball over. But I think they're going to come in and play well. They were coming off a bye week after that Tennessee win. I think Oklahoma gets this game 27-24. I think Xavier Robinson will have a solid game rushing, and I think Oklahoma will put a lot of pressure on Alabama and their pass protection. What's your thoughts there, D-Mac?
Yeah, Oklahoma is 112th in the turnover margin at -5. Alabama's 8th in the nation at +10. I do love Oklahoma's defense in this one. I think this is probably going to be the best defense Alabama's faced this year. But this is a game that I think settled by 1 score. And in 1-score games, I always lean on the leadership of the quarterback position. And, this is a football game. Now, if I was betting a Pac-12 game, maybe I'd lean on Oklahoma's quarterback here for who to take. but I'm going to lean Ty Simpson here. I think Alabama gets it done 27-20. It's a one-score game, but I'm leaning Alabama at home, and just frankly, I like Ty Simpson more than John Mateer. So, who do you like in this one, Sweets?
I'll start off by I like Alabama 31-20 here. And the biggest reason is the turnover margin. Your favorite stat, DMAC. Alabama's plus 10 on the year. Oklahoma's -5. That's a big swing. The other thing I like about Alabama is it's kind of a revenge game. Remember, Oklahoma knocked them out of playoff contention last year by smacking them around. And I think that Alabama remembers that. They're going to want revenge on this one. And at the end of the day, I think Alabama's a better team too. So three wrongs, your three rights don't make a wrong here. Give me the Gumps 31-20. And, they keep the train on the tracks. They end Oklahoma's playoff hopes. And that should be that. That should be that. Where do we go next, boss?
Yeah, so that brings us to New Mexico State at Tennessee. Sweets, if T's around, have her cover up her ears for this one. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not predicting an upset from an SEC.
They want something flying over my head.
No, I'm rolling with Tennessee here for sure. Let me look at the line, 41.5. Tennessee's offense has been electric, averaging 504 yards a game. Puts them first in the country, averaging 44 points a game. That's good for third. And they're throwing for about 330 yards a game, which puts them second in the nation. You look at this New Mexico State defense, they're giving up about 250 passing yards a game, puts them at 107th. Their defense is horrendous in third down stops at 42%. Tennessee's offense, though, on third downs, converting at nearly 49%. Tennessee doesn't hold the ball long. The kind of gimmick offense that they run up there allows them to score pretty quickly. So no need for them to hold the ball. Joey Aguilar's playing great, 2,800 yards passing, 21 touchdowns. I actually like Tennessee to cover 41.5 here. I'm going to go a 59-6 game, 53-point win for the Volunteers, and they keep a very small sliver of playoff hopes alive somehow. Who do you like in this one, Kevin?
Yeah, so whether Josh Heupel is putting his name out there for another job or whether he's just trying to get a bigger contract, I think that plays into this game, to your point. I think they're going to come out, play very well offensively. Again, coming off a bye, I think you're going to see them bring a lot of energy. Aguilar, I think, will play well. He wants, to extend himself, whether it be to get into the draft or to elevate himself for, again, another NIL deal. So I like Tennessee a lot in this game. I agree with you. They're going to cover the 41. It's hard to lay 41 points, but Tennessee's offense in these type of games usually rolls. I think Tennessee gets 62 points in this game, gives up 3 to 10. Give me Tennessee in a big way. Sweets, what's your thoughts?
I think Tennessee pitches a shutout. I'm gonna call it 59-0 up on Rocky Top this weekend. Tennessee's, this is a game where a lower skilled team like this, Tennessee can score literally every possession if they want to, and they probably will or come close to it. I just don't see any way New Mexico State hangs around. Good thing about it is they're going to collect, I think it was $1.3 million for their trip there, so it's going to help strengthen the program, help some other sports down there in TRC. So good for New Mexico State taking one on the chin for the rest of the sports programs at that college. So where does that take us next, buddy?
Yeah, speaking of lower level teams, that takes us to the Florida Gators traveling to Ole Miss. Who do you like in this one, Sweets?
Ole Miss is lower level. Oh, Wrong dog. Florida's lower level. That's right. Florida is the lower level team in this one. I like Ole Miss. I like Ole Miss big here. Florida is bad and getting worse. I mean the the brakes have come off that program down there. Lagway's being replaced at quarterback possibly. There's talk of him leaving the program. Is he going to have surgery? What are his parents going to do? Who's the coach going to be? uh, Florida's just in major disarray right now, and and what's even funnier is that the guy that they want to coach them is going to be across the field from them on Saturday. So I think there are going to be a lot of people, secret or maybe not even secretly, just flat out cheering for Ole Miss in Florida colors because they want they want this the debacle to end as soon as possible. Um, I think at the end of the day, Ole Miss with Trinidad Chambliss, on offense, he's been fantastic. Their defense is playing lights out. They're gonna keep rolling. They're gonna win this game. I'm gonna call it 45-13. I'm gonna take Ole Miss big here. I know Florida's got a good defense, but I think that this is the game where where they finally throw in the towel and just give up on the rest of the year. What are your thoughts on this one, DMAC?
Yeah, Ole Miss has been playing really good. I questioned Trinidad weeks ago when LSU went into Oxford. I didn't think he'd be able to have success against a good defense like LSU at that point, and he dominated the LSU defense. And I have been on the Winidad train since then. He, in my opinion, is one of the five best quarterbacks in the nation this year. Then you look over at the Florida sideline. You know, DJ Lagway has thrown 12 interceptions to 11 touchdowns this year. Good chance that he will not be playing this week. And 8 of those 12 interceptions have come in 2 games for him. 5 against LSU, 3 last week against Kentucky. Yeah, I think this is a game that Lane Kiffin's going to use to prove that, with all the talk about him going other places, that you can win at Ole Miss, and you don't have to go to a program like Florida to do that. I think they win this game 52-12, and I think it's going to be a 4 field goal game for the Florida Gators. I don't think they get into the end zone other than the ball flying through the uprights in this one. Kevin, what do you think of this one?
Well, there's nobody that likes to troll in college football more than Lane Kiffin. And there's nobody that will take advantage of an opportunity to bring attention to himself more than Lane Kiffin. And this game certainly offers that opportunity with the fact that Florida wants him. And so I don't know what he's going to say, but just, as he says, get your popcorn ready because he's going to there'll be something entertaining that Lane does before this game, probably during the game, and even after the game. And it's in Oxford. Again, Florida knocked them out of the playoffs last year. So there's just a lot of things in this game that I think Lane's not just going to want to win. I think he's going to want to execute well, play very well, and be dominant. And I think he will be. I think give me Ole Miss in this game 44-9, and Florida struggles continue.
Yeah, so that takes us to the Texas-Georgia game here. This game is going to be played in Athens, and Georgia is a 6.5-point favorite in this one. Texas is now up to number 10 in the most recent college football playoff rankings. Georgia is sitting at number 5. As bad as Texas has been at times this year, one thing that they've been able to do is find a way to win football games. Breaking down both of these teams a little more, Georgia's offense is averaging about 436 yards a game. They're running for about just under 200, and they're scoring 33 points a game. when you look at this Georgia defense, they're giving up 310 yards a game, 100 on the ground, and 210 through the air. They're giving up right at 20 points a game. And then the Texas offense is, averaging about 380 yards a game, 30 points per game. Their defense is giving up 314. They're only giving up 78 yards on the ground, which puts them second in the nation. And they're only giving up about 16 and a half points per game. This is a game. Georgia's normally a team that is easy to pick. But this year they are struggling a little bit. They are -2 in the turnover margin, which puts them at 87th, as to where Texas is 10th in the nation at +8. Gunnar Stockton's playing well, 2,000 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, completing just under 70% of his passes. They like to run the ball a lot, and it starts with Nate Frazier and Chauncey Bowens. That's Texas's strength, is stopping the run game. And then you look at the Texas offense. Arch Manning has been playing better football here the last few weeks, 2,200 yards on the season, 18 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. I think this could be a game that comes down to a special teams play. Texas's defense is really good. I think they are going to be able to slow down the offense for Georgia. And Georgia's defense has been a little suspect at times. I think it's going to depend on what Texas offense comes out. But I think one big X factor in this game is one for each team. It's going to be the kicker for Georgia, and the dangerous return man Ryan Niblett for Texas. So I'm going to make a bold prediction here. Sweets, go ahead and duck if Bella's home. I'm going to go Texas 31, Georgia 27. Texas gets a win on the road in Athens, and they keep their playoff hopes alive. What do you think, Sweets?
She doesn't care who you pick. I'm the mush. If I pick them, they're going to lose. That's how this goes. It's cute that you guys do your picks and all that, but I'm the one who's going to get stuff thrown at me, as you saw. So yeah, that was live, people. That wasn't set up. That actually just happened. Any more great picks you geniuses want to come up with before I lock the door and make sure no one comes in at me? Jesus. No, I think I think that Georgia wins this game. I think that Georgia, they're both teams obviously are still in the playoff hunt here. I think they finished Texas's playoff chances this week. I just don't think Arch is starting to play better, but I just don't think that they have. I just don't think that they have enough to beat Georgia. Give me the Pups at home. I'm gonna take them 24-16 Georgia. 24-16 Georgia. And I think that I think that Georgia's defense is just they're going to keep Texas out. Texas will get one touchdown and a few field goals. They're just Georgia's defense is going to bow up on them this week. What are your thoughts, Kev?
Yeah, so to me, my thoughts are which team for both of these teams shows up in this game. Texas, the last game that they played, Arch played his best game of the year. Their defense was almost dominant for 3 quarters, and Colin Simmons was as disruptive as any defensive player for the year. So I think Texas has a chance to come into this game and be very effective. And if I were picking this game before the way Georgia played last week at Mississippi State, that's Georgia's most dominant game of the year. Not just with Stockton, but they ran the ball. And, all year Kirby has been, we're going to run the ball. We're going to run the ball. Well, he finally did for a full game, run it effectively. And Georgia was dominant. So maybe is it both of these teams starting to peak at a key time of the year? I think that's the potential in what we have in both these teams. I do think Arch is going to continue to play well. I do think Sarkisian is going to continue to call plays for Texas that it will help Arch be successful. And I do think you're going to continue to see Colin Simmons be very disruptive. And Texas defense, I'm gonna, I know everybody says they're good, but to me, they're underrated. They're good at all three levels. They're very good with the defensive line. They have a really good secondary, and their linebackers are very good. So I think you're going to see this game be very competitive. I think, it's a 31-28 game with whichever team wins it. I do like Georgia's field goal kicker a little better, and so I think that's where the game is won. I think Georgia will kick a late field goal and win this game, but I think you're going to see both teams play well, and I think both teams are peaking towards the playoffs. And it would not surprise me if Texas wins this game. I think, again, if this was on a neutral field, I would take Texas. But in Georgia, I think you're going to continue to see that running game get a little better. I don't think statistically Georgia will look dominant just because of Texas defense, but I think they'll do enough. Give me Georgia 31-28 in a very well played game. I think both quarterbacks, Stockton and Manning, play well, and I think it'll be a great game to watch.
So that brings us to our last game of the weekend, Mississippi State and Missouri. Kevin, get us started on this one.
Yeah, so you've got a couple of key stats in this game. First, Mississippi State is +4 in the turnover margin. Missouri's -4. So that makes you lean to Mississippi State. Then the second key stat in this game to me is the rushing part of the aspect of things. Mississippi State's rushing defense gives up 174 yards a game. Missouri's rushing offense is 232 yards a game, the best rushing offense in the SEC. So when I factor that in, I like Missouri. They're going to lean on the run. They're playing a freshman quarterback in Zollers. He did not hurt them last week. He had some drops. Even Josh Manning dropped 2 passes in the game that were key and could have kept the ball moving. So I think he will play solid this week, won't turn the ball over, and they will lean on that running game. And I think that is the difference in the game this weekend for Missouri. Give me Missouri in a 27-20 game. But again, don't discount that turnover margin with Mississippi State. I just think Drink will call a game that will set its quarterback up for success. They will not put the ball in harm's way. They will lean on that.
I think we lost Kev there. I'll jump in. I think Kevin's on the right track. I think that Missouri is going to win this game on the ground. With Ahmad Hardy being one of the top running backs in the nation, and I think Drinkwitz just gonna be the better coach in this game. He's gonna coach a smart game. They're gonna keep the ball on the ground, play time of possession, and make Mississippi State go the long way around to beat them. So. I don't know who he was going to pick. I'm going to assume Mizzou. I'm going to go ahead and jump in and take Mizzou as well. I like Mizzou here. I'm going to go 27-17 Mizzou here. What are your thoughts on this one, D-Mac?
Yeah, I loved Missouri early on in this season. Thought Ahmad Hardy, Jamal Roberts were running the ball great. I thought Bo Prabula was playing really good football. Now they've got a freshman quarterback, and teams have keened in a little bit more on their run game. While Ahmad Hardy and Jamal Roberts have still been effective and efficient, they've had a little more of an uphill battle. Mississippi State is a team that, before the season, I thought maybe they could get to 3 wins. 2 was a lot more likely for them. Right now they're sitting at 5-5. They finished the season on the road at Missouri this week, and then they have a home game against Ole Miss to close it out the day after Thanksgiving. They need one of these games to get bowl eligible. I think Jeff Levy's going to have his team ready to play. The turnover margin that Kevin talked about with Mississippi State being +4 and Missouri being -4 in this category could be the difference maker in this one. The Missouri defense, their stats look a lot better than they really are. They're showing that, 8th in total yardage on defense, 9th in pass yards, 18th in rushing, and 21st in scoring. I think Mississippi State's going to have some success this week. Blake Shapen's going to do some things through the air. Fluff Bothwell is going to run the ball well for them. I'm going to take Mississippi State on the road here to get a close win. I'm going to go 27-21. The Bulldogs pull off a win, get to bowl eligibility right before they lose to close out the year to Ole Miss. So give me the Bulldogs, and hey, they get to go bowling in December.
Did you just early call a loss for Mississippi State to Ole Miss next week?
The Egg Bowl. Called
okay.
the Egg Bowl.
Wow.
Little reverse psychology there, though. From a business side of things, I gain a lot more if Mississippi State upsets Ole Miss. So gonna go ahead and put it out there and hope the opposite happens.
Get the karma out there. I like it.
Yeah. So any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, it's like I said, we're getting near the end of the year now. These there are a few more teams with playoff hopes that we talked about tonight that their playoff hopes will be dashed come Saturday before they hit the sack. So it's just some good football to be played. A lot going on. I'm looking forward to the Texas Georgia game is going to be fantastic. Bama Oklahoma. A lot of games with playoff implications and seeding implications as well. So it should be a lot of fun. My wife and I are actually, though, going up to Grinnell to watch our son play his last game of his freshman year up there. So after their big 69-6 or 63-6 win this weekend, we're hoping they get to close out on a 2-game win streak and do some damage up there. Maybe that'll help you financially too, DMAC. Who knows?
Yeah, good. Good luck to Grinnell this weekend. I know Larry's worked his butt off to become a starter as a freshman up there. So hopefully they can finish the season with a win and have some really good things to build for next season. I'm ready for a few of these big SEC games this week with Oklahoma, Alabama, then Georgia, Texas. Those are going to be 2 unbelievable games. So, guys, we'll be back on Thursday night with some high school playoff preview stuff, along with our final picks going into the weekend. So we'll